have Tilly Storm with me here today. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm excited to interview you. We're going to be going into lots of juicy, sexy topics that I know the listeners are just dying to learn about. But before I really get to ask you all of these amazing questions, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got on this path?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm Tilly Storm. I am a holistic sex and intimacy coach. And I've been doing this for about 4.5 years now. I was born and raised Southern Baptist in a small suburb of New Orleans, Louisiana, and I grew up with a lot of body guilt and shame. I remember walking out of the bathroom one day when I was 6 years old and my parents fussing at me because I didn't have clothes on. I wasn't fully dressed when I came out of the bathroom. They're just, super prim and proper type people. And, that some of those early things are seemingly insignificant when they happen, but later on they were like so impactful and you're just like, oh my God, like how did that fuck me up so bad, right?
Right.
So yeah, when I was 23, I had my first baby unassisted. I had a free birth with him. I had actually gone to school to be an OBGYN and decided that I'd seen a lot of C-sections and I was like, oh, I definitely don't want that. So I decided to have my baby at home. And even like, as far as having a midwife was involved, like I just wasn't feeling it. So I just knew that's what I needed to do, and it ended up changing everything. It set me on a path of really diving into my own spirituality, questioning everything I'd ever been taught about my body. Everyone was like, how did you have the guts to do that? That's so courageous. And to me, it was just like, this feels like the normal, natural thing to do, and it's just something that I knew that I got to do, and how my baby needed to be born. I couldn't explain it, but it ended up being like such a mind-blowing experience in terms of me learning to trust my body, that I knew how to birth a baby. I knew how to do it in pleasure too, when I could just follow my instincts and be in my body, that everything would be fine. And it was beautiful. So that kind of set me on the path of questioning and discovering my own spirituality. So I read every book I could get my hands on, a self-help book wise, because I had no idea who I was. Everything my parents had taught me to be, and our identity as the family and our family values were just nothing that I shared with them. So yeah, it was when I was 27 years old. I remember my partner telling me at the time, he's like, you can only orgasm in one way. And I just remember thinking, you're right. That's kind of annoying. I'm 27 and I'm supposed to be having awesome sex and all these orgasms and stuff. And like, I don't know. I mean, this is it. Like, what's the big hype about? Like there's got to be more of the sex stuff than I'm experiencing, because to me, it's fine, but it's not like super awesome or earth shattering or anything like that by any means. So that's when I decided to learn the Jade practice, which is a Taoist practice that we can go into a little bit more. But I ended up becoming multi-orgasmic within 2 months of learning the Jade practice. I totally learned how to have different types of orgasms in different ways. I get rid of all my body shame and guilt and just started really being free to express myself, not just like sexually, but in my business and what I was doing and what I wanted to do in the world. So yeah, I eventually found out that sex coaching was a thing, and I was like, yep, that's what I'm here to do with my life. And that was, 6 years ago now. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that, and I have lots of things I want to touch on in your story and what got you to where you are today. But I would like to start with the trauma around childbirth. I myself never got to experience the empowering experience that you had with my own children, but it's something that I have been aware of and almost wish that I would have had, that calling and that awakening and that intuitive nudge sooner. And I know that this is just part of my journey. I didn't get those experiences. I don't plan on having more children. So it's out of the cards for me. But I would really like you to speak on this so that maybe women who are planning to have more children or haven't had children yet, can you maybe encourage them to learn to listen to their body and maybe share how you feel about this gift that we have as women where we can tap into this power, and this is a sacred knowledge that is just inside of us.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a big conversation, and one that really triggers the hell out of a lot of people too. Like,
Yeah.
it can be very triggering for some people to hear that, while other people just, around the Western medical system and doctors and how much trust and faith that we put in doctors to heal us, when, coming from my beliefs and perspectives, this is that you're the only one that ever heals you. And, when things happen, that's a choice you make from your higher self, because that's your soul's growth potential. And that's why you chose that. That's not everyone's belief. So when it comes to birth experiences, like, you're right, like, maybe you didn't have a great experience, but that's just as beautiful as having what you deem to be a great experience, because that means that you get to grow and expand and learn. Oh, well, maybe from that not so great birth experience, right, you learned how much you didn't trust your body, or you learned how you gave your power away in some way. And how else could you have received that unconscious belief or commitment that you had other than that experience, So I really believe everyone gets the perfect experience that they need for their own growth and evolution. But for me, it was just required to have that, because that was the only way for me to wake up and see, wow, everything my parents taught me about my body was a bunch of freaking garbage. And like, that's not helping anyone. It's only disconnecting us from our power, and that the body is a vessel to teach us and to bring us into healing, integration, and eventually alignment into more of what we do want. But we don't know how to use it in that way. We don't know how to use it to align us to more of our desires. And the way that we can do that is allowing ourselves to feel, right? Just allowing yourself to feel things, to feel sensations in your body, to tune into your body. Ask your body what's going on. Like, what is it that you want? What is it that you need from me right now? When you get a headache, no, it's not because you need a cup of coffee or you're super tired. There's something that your body is trying to get your attention. Anytime there's pain, it's like, okay, listen, pay attention inside now. That's what pain is, right? So anytime there's the perception of pain, or it's just your body's way of saying something's not quite right, you should tune into me, right? But this isn't something that we're taught. This is not what our parents taught us. We were praised as little girls to get good grades, to do all the things, to be in our heads, to be super smart. And it's exactly the being in your head conditioning that actually disconnects us from our body's wisdom and intuition. So it's literally like everything you got taught and conditioned growing up is exactly the opposite of what's required to, number one, have an empowering birth experience by being connected to your body, and number two, have great sex. Because the best sex happens when you're not in your head thinking about it, right? That's why people often have better sex when they're drunk, or when they're high, or after they've had some sorts of transcendent experiences, because they get out of their heads finally. It's easy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We are conditioned in our Western society to live in our heads, and we're so out of tune with our bodies. And this is just society as a whole, but combine that with someone who has experienced some kind of trauma or some extreme, emotional abuse or physical abuse, it's going to be even harder for those people to tune into their body, because you've been suppressing all of that pain and all of those emotions for so long that when when you finally tune into your body again, it's going to be scary, and it's probably not going to feel as nice as we're describing. But you know, just know that it will get better and you will become more and more comfortable. It's just because you haven't tuned in for so long.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It can feel like you've unblocked the dam at first. Like when you finally start letting yourself feel instead of numb out all the time. I mean, when women do that, and as in my programs and coachings, that's generally the thing. Like, oh my God, I feel like, am I ever going to stop crying, or am I ever going to feel anything, because I feel so numb to everything. So there's often this like, you've been blocking things for so long, you've put a lid on it for so long, that's just your body's like set point to only experience this little bit of life. But when in reality, there's so much more to feel, there's so much more experience, there's so much more pleasure and bliss and ecstasy to be had, but we're too afraid to feel it sometimes.
We are too afraid to feel sometimes, and unfortunately, a lot of that is because we have felt things that were very uncomfortable. But well, from my experience, because I've also been there, I was one that was definitely numb and always in my head for a long time. But after I had my awakening, there were moments where it was tough, but every moment of it was worth it, because it reconnected me with my purpose, with my higher self, with who I am.
Yeah.
And I learned that the moments that were uncomfortable were just really helping me progress and grow into a better version of myself.
Yeah, absolutely. So true. I think that's, all of us, if we truly dove in and allowed ourselves to feel our feelings, many of us just don't have the tools to do that and not get stuck in the shit and not get stuck in the negativity around it. But there's definitely ways to approach your emotions and to approach feeling your body for the first time in a while without numbing and suppressing, that allow you to move through the energy of it to alchemize it into more pleasure. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of feeling, I want to talk about Tantra a little bit, because I know that you teach Tantra in many of your workshops and many of your coaching. And that is definitely one way that you can really learn to be more present, and you can learn to start feeling again. Can you talk a little bit about what Tantra is exactly, for maybe people who aren't sure, or maybe even for the people who think it's just about great sex, which it's a lot deeper than that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as far as feeling your feelings, like I incorporate a lot of nervous system work and to helping people to access their what they are actually feeling in their body, and using cathartic processes to release that. So in terms of feeling your feelings, the nervous system and the cathartic processes are the best way to help complete stress cycles of you constantly numbing out, not facing the things that you want to feel. So working at that nervous system level is really important for that. Tantra is a totally different thing. So Tantra, there are two paths. There is classical Tantra, there's Neo-Tantra. Classical Tantra is a spiritual path that has nothing to do with sex. It's just, most of it is non-dual, meaning that there's nothing right, there's nothing wrong in the universe. Everything just is what it is, and that our suffering is only because we place judgment on things. So it's about acceptance of all things, about recognizing that all things do have a right to exist, even if there's something that we deem as not pleasant or challenging or a struggle or whatever, that thing still has a right to exist here and to be a part of your experience for your greatest growth and evolution. So that's classical Tantra, right? And then there's Neo-Tantra, which was founded by a guy named Osho. Have you heard of him?
I have.
Yeah. Okay. So Osho, there's a documentary about him. It's called Wild Wild West on Netflix, and about his community that he created out in Oregon, I believe. Maybe it was Washington. I don't know, somewhere in the Midwest. And in the 60s, he had a really big following in India and moved to the Northwest with a bunch of his people. And he taught paths and practices to everyday liberation. And this meaning that there were definitely, he noticed that people were really blocked in their sexuality, that coming into full sexual expression and liberation for a lot of people was something that they just weren't able to access or to do. So he created all of these amazing tools and practices, like pussy massage, penis massage, you know, emotional liberation, just all of these things that help unblock us and our bodies, to help open up our energy channels, our kundalini, our nadis, to be able to access all of our sexual energy and fully inhabit it and learn how to use it intentionally. So yes, he did create practices that were much more sexual healing and liberation based, that definitely had a basis in classical tantric concepts, but it wasn't about everyday enlightenment as much as about, okay, this is just a great tool for relationships, for sexuality, for helping you get out of your body and experience elevated emotions like ecstasy and bliss. So that's what he was about. So when you talk about Tantra being about sex, you're talking about Neo-Tantra.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And you actually have a tantric sex starter kit on your website that you offer as well, right?
Yep, I sure do. Yeah. So these are communication and connection practices. A lot of tantric sex has very little to do about penis and vagina sex. It's about helping you to understand the energetics of sex. Some people are much more energetically inclined in their sexuality, and that's what we call having an energetic erotic language. Not everyone is inclined to that, but everyone has access to it and can play in that space if they want. Some people like kinky stuff. Some people like explicitly sexual stuff. Some people like the sensual stuff. But anyone that's like interested in energetics and is energetically inclined, Tantric Sex is an amazing place and space to play in, because it teaches you different communication and connection practices to really tune into your partner and experience turn on and anticipation before a sex act, or what we deem as a sex act, ever even happens. So even in the Tantric Sex starter kit, none of it's sexual. It's just communication and connection. It's teaching each other how to hold space for each other, how to give each other what it is that you want and need. So a lot of women struggle in their sexuality asking for what they want for two reasons. One, because most women don't know what they want and like. And two, because even if they do, they often have a difficult time asking for it. So there's practices on, giving your partner what it is they want, and having that specific set aside ritualistic time to begin in a safe space to speak those things, knowing that your partner's not going to judge you. They're just going to be there to give you whatever it is you need. So there's some amazing different practices. There's a breathwork belly to belly breathing practice. It's super beautiful. A tantric eye gazing practice. It's not just staring into your partner like you're sitting there bored to death looking at each other. There's a lot more involved. But yeah, that's available for free on tillystorm.com.
Awesome. Yeah, I know that for me personally, some of the, I guess, best sex practices I've ever had is when we start with that connection, when we start with building up that intimacy. And because of a lot of shame that is around sex, like you said, it is so hard for women to admit what they want and ask for it. But whenever you're able to slowly build into the sexual act, if that's even where you want it to go, but when you're able to connect with each other by using these practices that you offer in this kit, it makes you more comfortable to be vulnerable and to not feel so much judgment and shame that we've been conditioned into. And I've really noticed that that's really impacted me and my husband in our own, sexual journey. It's, and we're both different. We both like different things. I'm definitely one that I like the build. If you haven't talked to me all day, I'm not going to be interested in having sex with you. I'm just not. And he's more like, you don't have to talk to me all day, but let's play some music, let's get in the mood a little bit. So if we take our time, we slow down, because society also doesn't want us to slow down, because we're always in this fast-paced environment where we've got to get things done, and we just got to achieve, which most people think is the orgasm, right?
Mhm.
So if we take time to build into this, it's just, you really do create this magical experience for everyone involved.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, women's bodies take 30 to 40 minutes to really open to their full pleasure capacity, but the average couple only has sex for 7 minutes. So if that tells you anything about all the pleasure that, if you're a woman listening to this, that you are missing out on, because you are just conditioned from Hollywood and from pornography that your body is supposed to respond in 5 minutes flat. I have people all the time, they're just like, oh, I just want to learn how to have an orgasm quicker. And I'm like, no, honey, you're not for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what you're going to be learning here. Yeah, I mean, that conditioning is what we get to work through, right? Because that's the issue. It's not that you can't orgasm in less than 5 minutes, it's that you think you need to. That's the problem. So yeah, I mean, there's all of that. And if you're not giving yourself enough time to be fully turned on and wet and lubricated before penetration, oh my God, there's all of our clients. It's so obvious after they're in our programs for like 3 or 4 weeks that, wow, like I had no idea like what my body actually needed until I dove in and found out. I had no idea that was even available until they did the practices and really taught themselves, well, this is how the female body is turned on, So yeah, you need to.
Yeah. Can you go into the different types of orgasms a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, my favorite topic. Yay.
Okay, yay. I've been interested in asking you this question.
Yeah, this is the one I totally geek out on. I guess because after my own experience of only ever having clitoral orgasms, but also only ever having them in one position. So that's, again, what kind of got me into the sexuality work, was that comment my partner had made at the time, like, you can only orgasm in one way. I'm like, yeah, that's super limiting. I don't like this. Like, how can I change this? When I learned the Jade practice and I became multi-orgasmic, it was like the freaking dam broke. And I was like having all the types of orgasms. And I had no idea that all of these things were even possible. No one gets a pleasure education. So, you don't even know until you know what you're missing out on. So I love this topic just because it means I probably am the first person that's ever informed you of all the pleasure available in your body that you aren't experiencing right now. And it gives you it gives you the blueprint to know what is even possible. And until we even know that, then what's the point of moving forward with learning it, right? Because you didn't even know it was possible. So yes, there are 8 different types, really infinite types of orgasmic experiences that we can have. Some of them are friction based and some of them aren't. As women age, especially postmenopausal years, friction based orgasms tend to be less and less important to women. And I mean, I'm speaking generally, I have not gone through menopause myself, so I can't speak from personal experience, but from older clients that I do have, this is, part of a big thing for them. So there's clitoral orgasms, which are the most common. And the clitoris is very misunderstood. Most people think it's just the thing at the tip of their vulva, when actually it's huge. Like, I don't know if we're on video here. Do people see the video?
No, I usually only post the audio.
Okay. Yeah. So the clitoris actually forms what they call 2 curae. And these legs extend into the vaginal canal, and they're huge. Like, they're inches long, several inches long, and they encompass most of the vaginal canal. So there's 4 total of these legs that extend into the vaginal tissue that have nothing to do with the clitoral hood. So you're only seeing literally the tip of the iceberg when you look at your clitoral hood. So just knowing that there's so much more access inside of your vagina that allows these other types of orgasms I'm about to share with you. So the second is the Gspot. So women can have Gspot orgasms and they can ejaculate. Sometimes these two things are combined, sometimes they're not. So that means that you can have a Gspot orgasm without ejaculating, and you can ejaculate without having a Gspot orgasm. So it's kind of like, it's kind of confusing for women sometimes because they're not sure what's going on or what's happening or what did I just experience, right? So the Gspot is the spongy tissue on the anterior side of the vaginal canal that the clitoral legs do tend to innervate and touch, and at the point of the Gspot. So it's a spongy tissue that when it's stroked in a way that works for you, and it can be different types of strokes for different people, it can lead to an orgasmic experience. And then you have the Aspot, which is right below the cervix. It's about 2 to 4 inches, depending on how long your vaginal canal is. And by the way, that changes throughout the month. When you're ovulating, menstruating, your cervix is closer into the vaginal canal. And when you're in the middle of those phases, that's higher up. So your A-spot is, say you're not menstruating or ovulating, it's going to be pretty high up in your vagina on the anterior wall. And it is not a point that you can like locate to feel with your finger. So you can't just like put your finger in there and be like, oh, there's my A-spot. You can do that with your G-spot most of the time, because for most women, it feels like little walnut ridges on the G-spot tissue. It feels rigid. The A-spot, it's just smooth like the rest of the vaginal tissue. The only way you know you've hit it is that it's more sensitive to pressure. So the A-spot is responsible for orgasms from penetration. So when women say, I want to have vaginal orgasms or orgasms from penetration, this is generally what they mean. They want A-spot orgasms. They want to be able to orgasm from their partner being inside of them, or a dildo being inside of them, or something like that. And that will often happen because the A-spot is also right along where those clitoral legs move into. So sometimes blended orgasm with clitoral stimulation and the A-spot can help you to learn how to experience vaginal orgasms, A-spot orgasms. So those are 3. And then you've got cervical orgasms. So the cervix is generally a spot that I would say 90% of women would say, oh my God, that hurts, don't touch that. A lot of people don't even know where their cervix is or what it feels like. It's like the tip of your nose with a little hole, a pen, like as tiny as a pen head hole. That's the part when you birth a baby, it's called the cervical os. It literally dilates to 10 centimeters, right? So if you've had a vaginal birth, it will often be a little bit wider, that pin drop, than it would prior to having a vaginal birth. So you can always kind of, feel up there and see, what is it like for me? Is it this tiny little slit I can barely even see? It's where an IUD string would hang out if you have an IUD or you've had one of those before. So cervical orgasms are, cervical touch is often, it's something that gets to be de-armored. So if you experience pain there, any pain during sex with your partner with a penis, if it's painful ever and you feel it up high, that's pretty common for a lot of women. But at the same time, it's not normal. So that just means that you get to de-armor and decondition because that's where we store our trauma. So if you've, if you're living and alive on this planet, you have sexual trauma, at least in the form of negative sexual conditioning. There's not a single person that's escaped from it. And if you experience pain there, that's because you're probably holding it there. So de-armoring practices like the penis and pussy massage I was telling you about, the pussy massage, to have your partner learn to de-armor it and to help you work through that can be a beautiful experience to share with, a long-term committed partner. It's not something that you would just want to do with someone you're dating that's new or something like that. But yeah, it can be a beautiful experience to do that healing work together, so that you can experience all the pleasure available there, because cervical orgasms are like, whew, they are intense and they last for days. And when I talk to, I am dead serious. I'm just, like when you have one for the first time, it'll be days later and you like still feel it at the deepest soul level. Like, it's just like, oh my God, like, oh, what is that sensation I feel? Like, what the hell is this? But it feels good, you'll have waves of that come back even days later. So it's just this exquisite experience that's not like a clitoral orgasm where there's just like fireworks, but it's like rolling waves that just seem to never end. So I'll stop there and let you ask questions and then we can go to that.
Yeah. Thankfully, I have experienced, I believe most of those types, but I have in the past held trauma there, and I would notice there would be times when it would hurt and it would bother me to have any kind of deep penetration towards my cervix, and these were more probably when I was ovulating. So like you said, it's lower.
Yeah.
And then there were times when it wouldn't bother me as much. Now, since I've done a lot more healing and I've done a lot more work, I haven't experienced any pain in my cervix in quite a while. But I definitely agree with you. It's nothing like a clitoral orgasm. Like, it's full body. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. I tell my husband, I'm like, I feel like I just like left my body. I feel like I just died. Like, I was floating around.
Yeah. It's like your soul being touched by God or something insane. Like, it's so beautiful and so magnificent. And yeah, just talking about it fires me up to help every woman have a cervical orgasm, because God damn it, you shouldn't leave this body without having one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And if you are one that maybe has trouble with achieving other types of orgasms, or you have a lot of pain in these areas, this is where the Tantra exercises and practices can help prime your body and help warm you up so that you actually open to your partner and you let go of some of that tension. Because I know, a lot of times when I would find it hard to stay wet or to really allow my partner to penetrate, it's because I was in my head, or I was tensing up, and I was holding so much, especially down there. We hold so much in our pelvic floor, which leads me to my next question. I wanted to see if you would talk a little bit about the Jade egg practice, which is so healing and wonderful for anyone that suffers any kind of trauma or just wants to get more familiar with their body, especially with their vagina.
Yeah, I will definitely go there. But first, I just want to share for the rest of you listening, be like, well, wait, what are the other 4 types of orgasms?
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to leave you hanging there.
I jumped ahead.
No, it's all good. And I won't go into them too deep. I'll just lead you to the resource where you can learn all about the other 4, because some of them are going to be like, what the hell? I never heard of that. There is anal orgasms, breast and heart orgasms, throat orgasms. Yes, it is real. Yes, I've had them. And full body and energy orgasms. So that's your other 4. You can learn all about them on my podcast, The Multiorgasmic Mama. It's episode 174. It's the second most listened to podcast. So anyway, just wanted to give that to y'all. All right, Jade.
I'm going to write that down. 174.
Yeah. And there's another one. I think it's episode 15. At the time that I recorded 15, I had not experienced throat orgasms, and I didn't even know that was a thing. So I share about, I did another one on, later down the road. Anyway, okay. Back to Jade eggs. Yes, the Jade egg practice is an ancient Taoist practice that was taught to the high priestesses and courtesans in China. It's a shamanic practice that was created by women for women that somehow got passed down from men by Mantak Chia to women in Western society about 40 years ago. So Mantak Chia is a man who wrote some incredible books called The Multiorgasmic Woman, The Multiorgasmic Man, The Multiorgasmic Couple. He wrote those with some doctors from the Western world, but he also has some of his own books. He has his own school, so he's a guru. And anyway, this practice is using a jade stone that you literally put in your pussy, and you do different squeezes, releases, breathwork practices, meditations with it to create more sensitivity in your vagina. So for people who struggle with vibrator dependency or needing to use a vibrator every time just to have an orgasm, this can be really great for them because it helps to resensitize you to also activate different pressure points inside of your vagina and reflexology points in your vagina to be able to experience some of those different types of orgasms that I just shared with you. So the Gspot, the Aspot, the cervix. Also, this practice just helps you to reverse the crazy conditioning we get about how it should just happen as quick as possible, help you to get out of your head and to just feel and be what's in your body. So I like to say that it's a practice to help you learn to approach your sexuality in a feminine way, because if you haven't done it, you don't know how to do that yet. You think you may have, but I promise you haven't. It's literally just taking every goal off the table and just learning how to feel what's in your body. What do I feel in my pussy and my vulva, and just going from there and learning how to move that energy through your body to open yourself up to the possibility of having different types of orgasms. I did the Jade egg practice literally because I heard somewhere, I have no idea where I even heard this, but I had heard that it could help you to break through shame around your sexuality and body confidence. So even though, I think I'm a pretty good looking woman, I'm pretty skinny. I have what most people would consider like the ideal body type or whatever. But even then, I was so freaking uncomfortable in my body when I was 27 years old, and my partner at the time made that comment. I had 2 kids and breastfed, and my boobs were saggy as fuck, and I did not like them. And I only wanted to have sex with the lights off or a shirt on because they made me that uncomfortable. So I had heard that it could help with that. And that's how I discovered the practice. Was like, okay, I need this. So just learning how to be okay in your body and to learn to love your body can sometimes be one of the greatest benefits of the practice. And maybe it has nothing to do with orgasm, but just learning how to be okay and to not feel so shy or embarrassed around your sexuality or how you express your sexuality, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, I really like that you touched on that, because we as women have been conditioned to not only not trust our bodies, but to not like our bodies and to be so shameful about them. And this can be in a comparison way where we compare ourselves to others and we want to look a certain way. But it's like you said, you even looked, you even looked sexy, but you still had this shame around the way that you looked. So we're all conditioned with that. I know that's something that I've struggled with my entire life. But also we are encouraged to not talk about how our bodies are different from men. We're shamed. It's the moment we start our periods, we're supposed to hide it. We're not encouraged to talk about it. And if you look at other cultures, they're thrown a party whenever they get their moon cycle. They are celebrated because they are becoming a woman, where in Western society, we're supposed to cover it up and we're supposed to be embarrassed about it. And we're supposed to sneak off to the bathroom and act like we're not doing anything different. So there's all these things that we've been conditioned to do. And I think that if the Jade Ed practice can eliminate any of those, limiting beliefs and any of those conditionings for someone, then it's worth it. And it's definitely worth it to try it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And there's a free how to start a Jade egg practice that you got on the website too. So if you're interested in that, you can learn everything you want to know about it there. It's an extensive practice. I think the biggest thing floating around the internet that drives me freaking crazy is, oh, it's unsafe. You're going to get toxic shock syndrome from it. It's so hilarious because Gwyneth Paltrow of Goop got sued by some doctor for making false claims about the jade egg that weren't scientifically backed. Well, guess what? Basically anything that's spiritual or that has a spiritual component or an energy component has not been scientifically studied and doesn't have scientific facts or things behind it, right? The science hasn't caught up to spirituality. So I don't know how much longer it's going to take, but it seems like quite a while. But yeah, I mean, there's all these doctors that are just like, oh, you should, here's why you shouldn't use a jade egg and all this and that. It's hilarious because I'm just sitting out there thinking, wow, it's really the things that have the potential to liberate us the most that get the most flack for no reason at all. And it's done by other women. And that's the sad part. It's like, have you ever used a sex toy before, honey? Do you go around telling people that they shouldn't use vibrators? Because that's what you're basically saying. Don't put anything in your pussy. But these claims are coming from people that literally have no idea what the practice is. They think that it's wearing a jade egg around, hoping that your sexuality is going to get better. That is not the jade egg practice. It's not wearing it around or wearing it while you sleep. It's very intentional. There's a lot of parts and components to it. So I don't want people to get the wrong idea and think that, you can just wear it around and these magical things are going to happen. That's not true at all. You actually have to learn how to use the thing. So go download the e-guide because it will give you a start. Like, trust me, that e-guide is just a taste. So you can figure out if this is something you like. But if you really want to learn the practice, then you get to do our programs, like our full programs and stuff.
Yeah, I saw the same thing when I looked it up because I was just, curious to see what was out there. And the first 5 articles were all something bashing it. It took me forever to find something, that was actually saying that it was, good for you and that you could try it. And I just roll my eyes at that kind of stuff because it's like you said, science is not on any level close to spirituality. And there's so many good things out there that are so good for us, mind, body, and spirit. But you've got doctors that they don't want to treat us holistically. They don't want to look at it that way. So they're not going to understand. They're not going to try to understand. And of course, they're going to try to discredit whatever we try to do to help ourselves, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's taken into their Vilesi and O-shot marketing. Which the O-shot is, using your own plasma and getting an injection in your clitoris, which to me sounds like absolute hell. But a lot of women do it and they say it helps their orgasm. That's great. But do you really want to make going to an appointment, having a shot up your freaking clitoris? Do you really want your orgasm to be dependent on that? If that's the last resort, by all means, go for it. Be empowered in that way, but it's not necessary. And that's where I come from. And Vilesi being like the women's Viagra or something, like it's, just do the jade egg practice. If it doesn't work for you, okay, then you can go try those things. But yeah.
Yes. No, I 100% agree with that. Have you ever tried Yoni steaming?
Yeah, I did for a while. I had a Mirena IUD, which a lot of women had. It was the only hormonal birth control I've ever had. I got it after my first relationship ended, and I had it for 4 years. And I got it because I absolutely did not want any more children. And I'm not one to get an abortion. It's not the right thing for me personally. So I just was like, dude, I don't freaking care. I'm just not having another baby. And my second one was literally conceived on the last day of my period. So I was just like kind of terrified about getting pregnant. I was just like, okay, well, apparently my body's super fertile. And I'm an early ovulator. So it was really challenging to use natural methods of birth control to even know when I was actually ovulating, because it wasn't what the normal is. Okay, what was the question again? Because I derailed there for a minute.
Yoni steaming.
Yoni steaming, yes. So when I got off of the Mirena IUD, my cycle was way different than before. I mean, that's pretty normal for the first couple anyhow, because you've been blocking the flow of your cycle. So it tends to be a lot heavier. So after like the first 6 months, it stopped being heavy, but the cycle length was so much shorter. And, it went from like 28, 29 days, like 23 or 24 days. And I wasn't sure what the deal was that I was like, is it just because I'm getting older, or, what's the deal? And then I had heard about Yoni steaming years ago, and I started doing it. We had an herb shop in New Orleans where I was living at the time. So I went and got the 7 types of herbs for short cycles, because you can do it. You can make different recipes based on what's going on in your cycle. And it did help. And it increased the cycle length from like 23, 24 days to like 26 to 27 days. So that's what's been normal for me after doing it. So yeah, it's been really good for me. And I think that there's a lot of benefit for women, especially if your cycles, if you experience PMS symptoms, if you have any female health issues, yeah, I think it's a great thing to try.
Yeah, I was actually drawn to that. I heard about it a couple months ago, and I was just really drawn to it. It's something that I'm gonna start trying. I don't have a lot of issues with my cycle. I have a very long cycle. It's like 33 or 34 days, and that's actually been pretty normal for me since I got my IUD, which is the Paragard IUD. So it's non-hormonal. But I'm also getting towards the end where I'm going to have to change and figure out what I'm going to do next. And I'm not sure if I'm going to continue using an IUD or if I'm going to move into something different. But I think that's why I've been drawn to it, so that I can really just kind of recalibrate and figure out what works best for me and my body after really healing and just learning to trust myself and trust my body again.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Well, it's a great little ritual to do, and it just feels good.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I definitely wanted to ask you about that. So you have a lot of different things that you offer on your website. Checked out earlier, and like I said, I listened to your podcast as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Ignite Your Desire that you have that you're offering?
Yeah. So we have an e-guide, but honestly, I think the best resource for the most amounts of women is the private podcast series called 5 Days to Epic Sex and Pleasure for High Achieving Moms. You don't have to be a mom to listen to it. Like 25% of our clients aren't moms, and they're not in relationships, and they're never going to be moms. They're cat moms or dog moms or nothing, whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's just who we speak to. That's my experience. So that's what I tend to speak to. But yeah, if you really struggle being in your head, because you have that high achieving mindset and you're like all about the goals, all about doing all the things. And, it's challenging for you to be in your body and to like stop and just be present with someone. Like, this is for you. So it's a 5-day, or it's 5-episode private podcast series that you can download. You can only access it by going to the website, putting in your name and email. So it is private, but it has literally the best, most amazing content in it. That, I mean, if there's anything I could share with you, it's in those 5 episodes. So yeah, I highly encourage you to go download that, because that's where you're going to get the most impact. And it's so easily consumable. You can just listen to it when you're on a walk or working out or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. I am going to go and download that probably when we get off this call. It's been so great talking to you. But before we go, is there anything else that you would like to share? Or any offers that you would like to talk about?
Uh, Not in particularly. I mean, once you go download all the free things, check them out and see if you like it. You know, we do have a women's group program that we have pretty much evergreen enrollment in it. And if it calls to you, book a call and apply. You know, it's not for everyone, but it's for a lot of people. And we've been doing it for 2.25 years now. So we've had like 70 women go through the program so far, and it's so phenomenal. It's so amazing. So if you're someone who wants to want sex, have better orgasms, have more intimacy and connection with your partner, just go download the free things and see if you vibe with it. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll put the links in the show notes for the listeners, but can you share your website and then where you can be found on social media if they would like to follow you?
Yes. So we're not best friends with social media. We've had literally five accounts blocked or banned in 4 years. So they don't like our sexy content.
Of
But
course not.
we are on Instagram and have stayed we had one Instagram account deleted, but we've been on there for about 2.5 years now without any issues, crossing fingers. So that's at tilly.storm. But the best place to stay connected with us is by just downloading one of those free resources and getting on our email list. So you'll get, we send regular emails to our people. So just look out for those emails. If you don't see them in your inbox, they're in your spam or promotions folder, guarantee you. And when you go to the website, if you're just listening to this and you're trying to go to it, type in the www.tillystorm.com. For whatever reason, if you don't type in the W's, it doesn't show up. So do that, and you can go to any of the free resources tab.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing all of this wonderful, helpful information that I know that the listeners really need.
Yeah, well, I hope it serves all of you listening in some way or the other and inspires you as well.